I'm happy to announce that after a long and grueling, completely uneventful primary process where nothing meaningfully changed or was challenged, the champion reigns. Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the presidential race, leaving it's Donald Trump. It was always going to be Donald Trump. But now it's definitely, for sure, super duper ultra definitely Donald Trump. Who's surprised, right?
Greetings from Florida.
Hello!
The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service. From joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq, to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as...
Really crazy how fruity he is, huh? How far he was able to go while being this fruity. He literally had PR specialists who were trying to coach him on how to act more like Trump with the hand gestures and but he can't resist being a fruity little guy, you know? The way he like tilts his head like that, you know? Remember his boots? Oh, I remember.
Governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who've been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation.
It's just a fundamentally, there is a void of charisma that cannot be overcome here. You know, it almost feels like AI. Like it genuinely kind of does feel like someone generated a video of him talking out this text. The closest thing that I can think of is George Bush, you know, in recent history. Obama and Donald Trump are both very charismatic people in their own way. W is significantly less so, but even he had substantially more presence and humanity to his speaking. In fact, for comparison, because I feel like it's important to understand just how creepy he is. It's insane. Here, hold on.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads.
See, I don't know what he's talking about here. I have no idea. But even he, and he's not an especially charismatic person, but even he has a kind of like, Jesus Christ, chat, really? Can't say shit around here. There's a likability. There's a kind of folksy, down to earth, even though a lot of it's fake. I mean, he's literally like very much part of the upper crust, like elite, you know, deep state, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of his presentation, but Ron DeSantis, in terms of his presentation, his lack of charisma, uniquely so. Vosh, I wouldn't call him relatable. Well, actually, the whole discourse on I would have a beer with him, that came about during the W presidency, you know? The idea being like, oh, you know, he might be stupid and he might have bad policy ideas, but he's not a weird stiff like Al Gore. You know, he's like a folksy guy you can talk to. And I guess I don't deny it. I don't think it's quite the same thing as being a good leader. You probably could have a conversation with George W. Bush. I think if I walked up to George W. Bush circa like 2000 and had a conversation with him, I could talk with him. I don't think I could talk to DeSantis. Do any of you think you could? I think he would just look at you like you were a cured ham with like pineapple slices on it. Like he would just, you know, hungry. Yeah, he would just look at you. It was just his eyes wide and glistening, you know? I don't think he would be able to engage very much.
We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education.
Look at this.
These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased.
Our currency to be debased. What does he mean? Inflation? That's an odd way of saying that. The inflation bubble ended. That ended. Joe Biden ended it. There was a peak, and then they stopped the inflation, and it went down. Thankfully, we didn't have Milei in charge of our economic plan for recovery. Debasing it. That's just odd. Odd term. It might be BRICS stuff with them not using USD. BRICS doesn't even exist. What BRICS? What's BRICS? BRICS. Honestly, not even a real thing. Maybe he's talking about prices being high via gouging. Republicans can never acknowledge that gouging happens because that would imply that businesses are taking money from consumers without good reason. You know, they can never acknowledge that. If the prices go up, it's because of inflation, and it's because of Joe Brandon and Hunter Brandon together in the Oval Office pulling the big, gigantic lever cranks that say raise inflation on them, you know? Anyway, debased. DeSantis, debased.
Our cities to crumble and our kids to be indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm.
The DC
The West has
elites
fallen.
who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves.
Nazi shit, just blatant, flagrant. The West has fallen. Our children are being indoctrinated. The elites hate you. Just full-on Nazi shit.
Seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people.
It's literally just the cultural Bolshevism thing. One of the easiest ways you can tell whether a person referring to the elites is like doing Nazi shit or doing leftist shit is that leftists will almost always acknowledge that the group they're referring to is the bourgeoisie. They'll say like companies, businesses, corporate America, stuff like that. Whereas people like Ron DeSantis or fascists or whatever will just say elites because by elites they mean liberals, by which they mean, you know, they don't explicitly mean Jews, but they lean in that direction. Oh, here's the wild card. Bankers. If somebody says that elite bankers control the world, it is a perfect three-way split between them being a Nazi, them being a leftist, and them being like some kind of crazy new world order guy who doesn't fit cleanly in either category. That's like the real dice roll.
Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers.
Notice how there's literally no, like, there isn't any connective tissue between the points he's making. He's just talking. He's just reading out sentence by sentence from the prompt with no shift in intonation, no flow. He's not leading you through a story. It's very weird. This sounds so scripted. Speeches like this are always scripted. You know, the skill is making them sound heartfelt and passionate. He's just unbelievably bad at it.
Big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation.
The only lasting consequence of his presidential run, it seems, is that it massively tilted his approval ratings in Florida. If you go all the way back to here on the far left side of the graph, both favorability and unfavorability are around 30, which means that fully about 40% of the people polled didn't know who he was. And there was a point in time during which he was known primarily for being a governor and his like, you know, notoriety and his awareness raged. And at this point, they were both even at 40-40. And now we're at a solid, like, 17-point difference between favorable and unfavorable. An incredible shift. I wonder how all the Nazis who were hired to be part of his campaign team, I wonder how they feel right now. They're probably trying to get jobs with Trump's campaign team. He was the meatball guy. Meatball Ron, yeah. We didn't even get to hear Meatball Ron that often because DeSantis was such a weak candidate that Donald Trump didn't even feel that threatened by him.
But he worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it.
Literally, this is like apologetics, but holy shit, I can't get over the way he looks. Look at this with no sound. Just look at his face. Just take the time to really, like, just stare into those pearly blues. It's terrifying. It's genuinely, like, quite scary. Yeah. I'm going to talk more about this, but I want to emphasize how bad of a political candidate he is, in large part because I think that this speaks negatively to the GOP. Like, I think this indicates weakness on the part of the GOP, but I'll talk more about that after we're done listening to him. He looks undercooked. I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
More interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump
trying to outflank Donald Trump from the right, where he's like, actually, Donald Trump was too woke. Incredibly funny. So cuck, dude. Oh, yeah, to be sure. Remember how there was that leaked document on Ron DeSantis's presentation where he was literally like, yeah, you can't criticize Donald Trump? Like, he was being given prompts on how to defend Trump if he was criticized by Chris Christie, who did criticize Trump on the primary debate stage. You remember that, right? Where the agency that was handling their campaign PR, so unbelievably pathetic. And again, I'll go over this again after we're done with the video and the subsequent video, the little bit from Trump. It's important to keep this in mind because it reinforces the point that I'm going to make.
Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff. Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in.
This is his wife, by the way. You can see the love in her eyes. It's just like the standard stock. Like, I feel like I don't know anything about her, so I'm just gonna make this up, and all of you believe me, okay? She's actually been created in a lab to kind of like give the same Trump wife, First Lady vibe, like a much younger, vaguely ethnic, pretty but unsettling looking lady who clearly doesn't love her husband. She didn't exist until she was made in a lab. I'm certain that's what happened, and you should all believe me. His first date story with her is so dumb. I think I remember it. I can't. Oh, hello. He's thinking about his wife too. You dog.
Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you, and God bless.
Fantastic. So yeah, this was kind of expected for a while, though it's still funny and delightful to see it happen. He also quoted Churchill in this tweet, but Churchill never said the thing he quoted. Churchill never said those words. He never said the similar words usually attributed to him, which are success not final, failure is not fatal, so courage continues counts. So he just never said it. Churchill did say no one can guarantee success in war, but only deserve it. Okay, so just, all right. Well, quote checked. Honestly, he sounds relieved to have to finally suspend his campaign. Yeah, I want to talk about that after we take a look at Donald Trump's response. Donald Trump entering the hotel room and seeing DeSantis in the chair in the corner 2 hours ago.
Before we begin, I'd like to take time to congratulate Ron DeSantis and, of course, a really terrific person who I've gotten to know, his wife, Casey, for having run a great campaign for president. He did. He ran a...
What? Before saying anything, I've gotten to know his wife? You dog.
a really good campaign, I will tell you. It's not easy. They think it's easy doing this stuff, right? It's not easy. But as you know, he left the campaign trail today at 3 p.m., and in so doing, he was very gracious, and he endorsed me, so I appreciate it.
It's so over, dude.
I appreciate that, and I also look forward to working with Ron and everybody else to defeat crooked Joe Biden. We will have to get him out. We have to get him out. He's put our country at great peril.
Easy, natural charisma. So, look, I've said this a million times before, and I'm going to say it again. The GOP does not like Trump very much. Mind you, the voting base loves Trump, but what the party, the Republican Party, wants more than anything else to consolidate itself around a set of political interests that over time have gotten less and less popular with the electorate. They want to promote business interests. But even Republicans these days are very suspicious of big corporations, you know, the pharmaceutical industries, Fauci, Disney, whatever. We're just not in the era of like neoconservative, you know, like business first Reagan-esque policy anymore. So how do you promote those interests while the population skews from them? Well, of course, you bait the population with culture war stuff. Fascist arguments about how degenerates are ruining society, big homo, you know, and then you do the pro-business stuff anyway, right? That's why it's always weird because you see people like Tucker Carlson or Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, they'll talk about how they're like challenging the corporate elite or whatever, and then you take a look at what they support, and they support the exact same sets of tax cuts or whatever else that all the previous neocons did. The issue is, you know, the GOP, in order to thread this needle, they want someone who's reliable. Now, the GOP pretty much entirely fell behind Donald Trump back during January 6th, all those years ago, remember? All the way back then, Donald Trump essentially spearheaded the effort, but it was supported from a lot of different places. If he can't win the 2020 election, he'll just, you know, take it. And Donald Trump failed. And Donald Trump failed so spectacularly that it ended up hamstringing the GOP in a lot of ways. You know, now people are suspicious about the GOP engaging in a coup. You know, before January 6th, the idea that the Republicans wanted to coup the country was not like a mainstream one. There were some crazy cranks like me who were talking about it well beforehand, but the idea that all of the election denialism was leading up to an effort to just end democracy, that was a relatively niche perspective. Now, after January 6th, basically every liberal in the country accepts this, you know, it's widespread knowledge. The GOP can't trust Donald Trump anymore because he's too loud, brash, incompetent, self-centered, he's not good at strategizing. He's funny and he's charismatic, so he's good at winning votes, but he's not great at doing the kind of like cloak and dagger work that you would want somebody like him to do if they really wanted to end democracy. Right? So the GOP threw their weight behind Ron DeSantis. We saw a gap on this, by the way, where the Daily Wire and Fox News and other like mainstream institutionally Republican aligned groups started like being weirdly deferential to Ron DeSantis. And the reason they wanted this is because Ron DeSantis is a demon. He is a vet. He's a torturer. Every account we have of him indicates the man has literally no soul. He has nothing inside of him. He's a black pit morally. So he can be made to do anything, made to say anything, to initiate a coup, to be careful, to pull back here. He's not driven by ego the way Donald Trump is, because he doesn't have any ego, because that would be something inside of him, which is empty. So the GOP worked and gave him publicity and promotion and da-di-da-di-da. Vosh, he's not torture. He's not a torturer. He just watched the torture. Sorry. Well, having to listen to his speeches is kind of like torture. So I think it still fits. They did their best to make Ron DeSantis appealing to the electorate. And they're on a deadline, too. Keep this in mind. The GOP is sweating right now. They don't have much money. Some of their donors are no longer providing them backing. The GOP is running into more financial trouble, especially at a state level, than they have in a long time. Multiple states, GOPs, are essentially bankrupt. They even fronted the cost for a portion of Donald Trump's legal fees. A lot of the fundraising that would have otherwise gone to GOP interests, a lot of the fundraising that Donald Trump did after January 6th did not go to the party broadly to enrich them or fill their coffers, but rather it went to Donald Trump's legal fees, dozens and dozens and dozens of court cases. And like I've said before, Donald Trump can't just hire any old lawyer, right? Lawyers are expensive, sure, but they're not that expensive. Donald Trump is very wealthy, right? But Donald Trump can't just hire any old lawyer, right? Donald Trump needs high-profile celebrity lawyers who are very comfortable with lying. Lying is a liability. That liability costs money. So his legal teams are extremely expensive, and he has multiple of them working dozens of cases out from January 6th and up to now. Now, a lot of those cases have ended, of course, but he's still spending a ton of money on it. Some of his compatriots, people who you'd really think he would want to make sure have money because they might squeal otherwise, like Rudy Giuliani, are bankrupt. How do you think it feels for Donald Trump to be implicated in a criminal conspiracy and for other people that have also been implicated in the same conspiracy to not have the money to pay for their own legal fees? Like, that is the shit that gets prosecutors salivating, you know? Oh, you're out of money to defend yourself, huh? Well, you know what? We can go real easy on you if you're willing to sign a paper and do. You know? It's got to be a source of great anxiety, not only for Donald Trump, but for the GOP, because they really want to promote those business interests. In spite of everything they've tried for, Ron DeSantis was a hideous failure. Seriously. His approval rating has only gone down during the time he ran. He's uncharismatic. All of their PR testing on it just didn't work, you know? Their effort to detach the party from Donald Trump failed. And now it's just Donald Trump. That's it. This ancient, unwell, sickly-looking, heavily criminally implicated man, is now the entire, support structure for the GOP. Without Trump, they are well and truly gone. Admittedly, we don't have much in the way of good replacements for Biden, but if Biden croaked, I think they could drum up some kind of liberal sympathy campaign for Kamala Harris or Buttigieg or Warren or something. There could be some kind of... I'm not saying it'd be good, it'd be bad, but something could happen there. There is no alternative to Trump. Just flat, zero, nada, nothing. It all relies on him. And I think that's pretty cool. Donald Trump's old and weak. Maybe he lives another 20 years. I don't know. But he's got a lot on his plate, and considering how reliant they are on him. Here's a quick question, something that you might be interested in thinking about. Donald Trump hasn't really been doing much campaigning over the past year and a half because he's been so busy with his court cases and his age and his lack of money and so on and so forth. How well do you think he's going to handle, temperament-wise, his upcoming run of campaigns going into the election? You know, we're only 8.5 months away, 8, 9, thereabouts. We're not that far off. He's going to have to ramp it up and up and up. The gaffes will get louder and more prominent. He's going to have less and less energy. I don't know, guys. The way these court cases are developing as well, I haven't been following them that much lately because there's always something going on, but my understanding is that in some of the cases that Donald Trump is currently facing, there are people fully who were implicated alongside him who have just switched. They initially had MAGA lawyers, and when the MAGA lawyer couldn't get their paycheck anymore, they left. And then a new non-criminal lawyer would come in, criminal lawyer, a la Saul Goodman, and the, upstanding new lawyer would say, oh, so your previous legal strategy was to lie transparently to defend Donald Trump. You were essentially being set up to be a fall guy where you would implicate yourself, but Trump would be protected. Let's not do that, actually. Let's do a different strategy. You guys have seen this, haven't you? It'd be fun to go over and get a nice big rundown of the extent to which this is happening. All the people who have flipped. Who is Donald Trump's Bob McGill? I don't know. Whatever the case may be. It's something that I'm optimistic about. We'll see.